Welcome to the Glamping Guy Podcast, Episode 4.
I came home from that trip and talking with you, and I sat down with my wife and I said, I got something to run past you. And she's like, what? And I said, let's do it here. She said, what do you mean here? I said, we've got 3 acres. It's an unused pasture at the bottom of my hill. It's, we're in a pretty good location. Like, I really think this could work. And she said, I don't know if we can afford to do it. And I said, I don't know if we can afford not to do it.
I'm Chris Jube, the Glamping Guy, helping landowners develop safe, legal, and profitable accommodations on their private property. Today, we're joined by Zach Stoltenberg, the head honcho at Clockwork as the hospitality director. And he's actually a rock star in the glamping world, one of the lead speakers at the Glamping Show USA. And he's about to share with you his expertise, give you lots of pointers on how to develop a glamping operation. And what's really intriguing about Zach is that he is stepping into the world of glamping operations just like you. He has a nice piece of acreage out in Kansas City, or the Kansas City area, and he's going to turn it into a glamping operation. Now, before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. This is episode number 4, but there's plenty more. I've got glamping operators lined up waiting to share their experience in the glamping world. This is the podcast I wish I had when I started my glamping operation 5 years ago. I wish I could have just been on the fly on the wall and just listened to the wisdom of people who have walked the walk that I wanted to take the journey on. Now, this podcast is already podcast number 4, and I'm already deviating off of my regular program. We're going to be interviewing Zach for about 45 minutes, and that's going to be the podcast episode. But stay tuned to the end because Zach gets very specific about his glamping operation on his private property. You have to understand, Zach is an expert in the glamping industry. He's hired by glamping operators, the biggest glamping operators in the world. He knows his stuff. But I was most interested in what he was doing on his private, humble property on the outskirts of Kansas City. And so I'm really pumped about that. But I do give directions on how to watch it online because it's very visual. He shows screenshots and download documents and arguments that he's giving in front of the board of his city, dealing with grumpy neighbors or a grumpy neighbor. And so He's got a plan and a strategy to execute his glamping operation, and he's actually breaking ground next week. So this is live, man. It's actually happening. So make this one of your favorite podcast episodes for the Glamping Guy. Here's Zach Stoltenberg of Clockwork sharing his dream of his glamping operation. All right. Well, welcome here, Zach. How you doing?
Not too bad.
You're in Kansas City. I'm in Colorado. We've both been at each other's places, which is cool. Hey, I prepared an introduction for you. Okay, I pulled your LinkedIn profile into ChatGPT and said, write me a paragraph introduction, and you can correct anything if I got it wrong. But I want people to know who you are because you are a rock star in the glamping world, and I'm very excited about having you on the podcast. But I wanted to just introduce you to that. To them. So I'm excited to introduce Zach Stoltenberg to the Glamping Guy podcast. Zach is an experienced architect and project manager specializing in unique hospitality and glamping developments. With a passion for blending design with nature, Zach brings a wealth of knowledge in creating eco-friendly, sustainable glamping structures. His work emphasizes the importance of innovative architecture in enhancing guest experiences while maintaining environmental harmony. I can't wait for him to share insights on how thoughtful design can take glamping operations to the next level. How's that?
That's pretty good.
Not too bad.
I'm reminded to always stay humble in these scenarios.
Well, tell the audience about yourself. We want to know who Zach Stoltenberg is, what Clockwork is, and what your heart is in the glamping industry.
Sure. So as you said, I'm an architect. I'm a licensed architect. Currently licensed in 9 or 10 states around the country. I've been working in outdoor hospitality since 2016. I think it was the year I did my first RV resort. Started out really more on the RV side, and I kind of fell into it. I had a local project to me that was struggling to get through the entitlements and permits and approvals. And I happened to go to a public hearing where they were presenting, and their project got denied. And we walked out of there, and I kind of caught him in the street in the front of City Hall. And I said, guys, I want you to know not everybody here is against you. I think this is really cool. I see the potential with it. You just didn't do a good job of presenting yourselves. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'm an architect, and I've done this numerous times, for many other projects, whether they were multifamily or hotels or office towers or whatever. I was familiar with the planning and zoning process. And I said, I think we could make another go at this.
Okay.
And
where was this, by the way? Where was this?
This was in my hometown. I'm talking Oxy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was a planned RV resort called Lakeside RV. And so we ended up going out to dinner and having a couple drinks. 2 hours later, we had formulated kind of a plan to go back at this. Over the next month, I worked with their RV park designer. It was a guy named Rich Stockwell. He's out of the Pacific Northwest. Rich kind of taught me everything I needed to know about good RV resort design. And I guess being young and never having done it before, I came in with some new ideas and things that I thought would be cool. And when I showed it to them, Rich is like, I've never seen that before, but that's really cool. I really like it. And so we kind of came up with a plan. And then I did what I knew how to do, which was talk to people. So we held a couple community engagement sessions and had over 150 people attend and kind of presented the project to them. And 30 days to the date that they were denied, we went back before the same planning commission with a new plan, a new presentation, where we'd done a lot of outreach to the community, built some goodwill, answered a lot of questions, and we got unanimous approval on that project.
Nice. Oh, that's nice. And you just talked to people. You came with this was in 2016, you said?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that's 8 years ago. That was at the beginning. So that was an RV park, so it wasn't necessarily glamping.
And that was the beginning. The group that was doing that was fairly well connected in the RV industry, and they started kind of shopping the book that I'd put together for them. They were looking for investors, and they were looking for partners, and they showed it to a lot of people, and I started getting phone calls. And there were a lot of folks that said, hey, we saw the book that you did for Lakeside. We need a book like that. But we have this project down in Oklahoma, or we have this project out in Arizona. And so that was kind of the beginning. And the firm that I was with at the time really didn't see any potential in this. They certainly didn't have a problem cashing the checks from all the clients. But I think it was more of an ego thing more than anything else. And they just said, this isn't who we are. We do healthcare, and we do multifamily, and we do office. And why do you keep bringing these RV things in? And I said, well, I think there's huge potential in this industry, and we're doing something new that people are excited about. And I think this is really going somewhere. And they said, well, if you think that's great, why don't you go do it on your own? And so we parted ways in September 2019, which is an absolutely fabulous time to lose your job.
Yeah. COVID right around the corner.
Not knowing what was to come, right?
In the next couple months.
And I was fortunate at the time that I had about 4 or 5 different clients, and all of them stuck with me. They all said, you're our guy. You're who we're doing business with. And so for about the next year, I worked on my own, and I had gotten to know Christian Arnold, who's the owner, the founder of Clockwork, a couple of years earlier. And he and I had always kind of stayed in touch. And as I was getting busier, and I was needing some help to be able to keep up on my projects, I'd reached out to Christian, and he said, well, let's go out, let's talk. So we met up and had a couple beers, and I kind of told him what I was doing and what I was looking for and what I needed help in. And he said, you know what? I think there's something here. He's like, we've gotten 2 calls to do glamping resorts in the last couple of months, and I don't really know anything about it, but it sounds like you do. Let's do something together. And in February 2021, I came on full time with Clockwork, and they said, look, if you want to do this, if you want to build it, go and do it. Chase it, build it, grow it. We'll put some support behind you. You know, if there's any events you want to go to, we'll support you in that. And that first year, you know, things started slow, you know, which for me, I'd had 5 projects the entire year, the previous year. So when we did like 6 or 8 projects the first year, that was a really good year for me. You know, jump ahead since 2021. Now we've done over 65 projects.
Yeah, your name's everywhere. You're all over the place. You're all over the map.
Yeah,
that's actually, I think, where we met was in 2021 at the glamping show. We had just finished building our first container homes, and we were really excited about them. I think we had 1 or 2 built, and we were getting into the money making of the whole glamping world. And then you were also doing some sort of container home, I think out west, like Nevada or something like that.
Arizona. We had a project.
Arizona, yeah.
We did some container homes for.
Yeah, and we would nerd it out for about 15 minutes talking. You know, you were showing me all sorts of pictures and saying this, that, and it was I saw Micah was there, and we kind of hit it off there. But that was 2021.
Yeah. So, like you said, jump ahead. We've done projects literally coast to coast, all across the United States. Probably we're up to 18, 20 different states, something like that. This year, we started some of our first international projects, which has been really exciting.
Nice.
You know, a lot of my success absolutely has to do with doing a good job and earning trust from our clients and building on that, being kind of a go-to person. But a lot of it has to do with my team. I've got a great team of people that support me. My right hand, my project architect, Isaac, young guy, super talented, very creative designer. And, you know, he really does a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the stuff that is not appreciated enough. He's really one of the guys in the background, just buckling down, making it happen. Cooper, the same thing. He's a young guy, just finished his license. So he's full blown. I can call him an architect now because he's a licensed architect. But great skill set when it comes to putting together technical drawings, being organized, taking care of our clients. I really trust both of them wholeheartedly, and I rely on them heavily. And then, you know, we've got a lot of other people in our team that kind of jump in and fill the gaps. I've got a very talented interior designer, Elle Abernathy, who works in our office. She's got extensive experience with hospitality and F&B. Just a super creative designer, and our clients love her. I mean, she builds such a strong relationship with the client, the people that she's working on. They trust her. I trust her, and so a lot of our success is to not me, nothing to do with me, but the great team that I've got.
And you just got and before we went on the air, you said you just got back from China because you're looking at suppliers out there, and you were with a really well-known dude who I want to have on the show soon sometime.
I think I could probably put you guys in touch.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Go ahead and explain that. That was a fun little tidbit that you shared with me.
Well, that was actually the next thing I was going to get to, which was another key to our success in this industry has been our partners. Partnerships. You know, we do a lot to help clients that are wanting to build glamping resorts, but there's a lot of things I don't do. And we have really good partners and people that I trust and have earned their trust over the last 3+ years, 4+ years of really pursuing this full time. And I rely on them, and I get referrals from them. I send people to them when they need those services. And it's everybody. It's you know, people in the financial world that invest in these projects, or banks that finance loans for these projects, or consultants that design pools or do landscape or civil work, or, you know, all the things that I don't do as an architect. And so we've really become, I think, kind of not a one-stop shop, because there's a lot I don't do, but between me and my team and the partners that we have, we really can take care of a glamping client kind of from beginning to end. And
that's
I'm
what
always,
that's what you're doing out in China was.
So I went to China with one of our partners. Yes. Actually, it's one of the things I want to talk about, which is a new product that I designed when I started at Clockwork 3+ years ago. we looked at a lot of the tents, a lot of the things that were on the market. We started looking into building code of how do you get these things permitted. We
Yeah,
really
tell me
thought a
about it.
lot about guest experience
Yeah.
and how does this all work. And again, because I was kind of new to it, I wasn't afraid to ask questions and learn. And I don't like taking no for an answer. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's not right now or not yet. And in those cases, it's my job as a creative, as a thinker, to figure out another way.
Right.
And so we looked at a lot of the products that were on the market, and we saw a lot of shortcomings. And it was kind of the same things with all the different products that were there. And some of them have become kind of pet peeves for me, like zippers. I don't care how good the tent is. There's some great tent manufacturers out there that build quality products.
The
Not throwing
zippers are always the first to go.
not throwing anybody under the bus here, because there's some great stuff out there. But what's the first thing always to fail on any canvas tent?
The zippers. Yeah, I can tell you stories.
Oh yeah. And so here, you've got a manufacturer that's selling a 5 to 10, 15-year product that already has new from the factory built in an inherent feature that's going to fail within the first 3 to 6 months.
Right.
And so, we started kind of outlining what would we want in a perfect, ideal glamping tent. And we decided to focus on a tent because that's kind of the backbone of what glamping is, right? We've got a lot of other, boutique-y kind of units, and you've got domes and you got teepees and, the wagons, which I love, but the tent is still kind of the
canvas tent is the picturesque. Yeah. That's the logo of glamping. Yeah.
When people think of glamping, that's what they picture. And so I said, we're going to design a tent, and we're going to design it the best that we can. And hopefully it's something that addresses some of these issues. And so we kind of set a list of rules for ourselves. One was no zippers. Two was no screens, because the screens rip and tear and have just as many problems.
They're not easy to replace. Yeah, once they rip, you're done.
Yeah. 3 was no bugs, no snakes, no mice, no creepy crawlies, because that was a shortcoming we saw in a lot of products that were on the market. Number 4 was it had to have a bathroom. And this, came from some of my partners and some of the folks in the industry. And they said, look, just the ADRs, everything else, it's so much higher if you have a bathroom in the unit. It needs a bathroom.
KOA actually is really stingent about that, or really clear about that in the research.
Yeah.
Bathrooms inside.
And so we sat down kind of without any preconceived notions, without any baggage. And we designed what we thought was the best glamping tent we could design for the market. And that was the Nomad tent. And in 2021 at the glamping show, I had some drawings and some renderings of the concept, the idea of Nomad. And I ran into a gentleman there by the name of David Murray, and he owns a company called Mscapes. They're based out of Atlanta. And David has been in the hospitality industry for 3 decades. They are a trusted supplier and the brand standard for Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, IHG, all these major hotel brands. And M Group and Mscapes supplies all the furniture, the finishes, the bathroom components, all of that for all of those hotel chains. And I said, well, what are you doing at the glamping show? And he said, well, wouldn't you know it, my CEO got 2 calls in a week from some of our hotel clients asking us, what do you know about glamping? And I said, not a darn thing, but 2 calls in a week is not a coincidence. And he happened to look up and he saw the glamping show was a couple of weeks away. And he's like, I'm going to go to that and see what I can learn.
Awesome.
And so I met David, and he said, I'm really looking for something that we can carry as a hospitality supplier, something that could be marketed to the hospitality industry. And I said, well, let me show you an idea I've got. And I showed him Nomad. And David said, this is brilliant. And he just walked around the show. He'd just seen every unit that was there. We talked through kind of some of those shortcomings and why we did what we did with Nomad. And he's like, this is brilliant. And he's like, who are you going to have make it? And I said, I don't have a clue. I'm an architect. I don't want to be a manufacturer. And he's like, well, that's what I do. I figure out how to get things done, figure out how to get things built all over the world. We work with different vendors, suppliers, manufacturers everywhere. And I love this idea. And so we came up with a licensing agreement to allow M Group to kind of move the Nomad design and the concept forward. That was 2 years ago. Over the next 2 years, we did a lot of prototyping, a lot of development. We built, I think, 3 model rooms using the Nomad concept with 2 different manufacturers. We priced it. We found things that worked. We found things that we can improve and make even better. We found some things that didn't work that we changed. And we spent basically 2 years figuring out, once we go public with this thing, we want everything lined up to where these are immediately ready to roll. Because they've seen a lot of manufacturers kind of make that misstep where they were kind of a victim of their own success. Debuted some incredible new unit at the Glamping show, took pre-orders, and then couldn't deliver for a year and a half or 18 months.
That does happen. It's that fast of a market. I mean, the market's
it's happened again and again and again with new suppliers. And I said, I don't want to be that guy. Like the Nomad debuted in May of this year at the Hospitality Design Show in Las Vegas.
Dang, I didn't even know about that. So it debuted. Maybe I didn't know about that. Maybe
we had over 1,000 people come through the unit in 3 days, and had over 300 inquiries after that show. Some from major brands, some of those hoteliers I mentioned. Some from some major brands in the hospitality industry or the outdoor hospitality industry, some names you probably heard of that are looking at it as a potential, unit or replacement unit for some of their tents. Felt like it does a few things a little bit better than some of the other options. And we're still having those conversations, but always looking to make the product better, try to bring the price point down. And so that was part of my reason, the trip to go to China. We met with one of our manufacturers who is a tent builder based in Chengdu, China. They've been manufacturing tents for 25 plus years. So we went over and visited their factory, and they actually built 2 prototype Nomads for us. So we went over to walk those prototypes, actually stand inside of it, look at all the little details, tell them all the things that we liked, tell them the things that they needed to change, needed to be fixed before we kind of pushed forward with production on any more units.
Well, I will link to this on the podcast show notes because I'm looking at it right now. I think I've seen this video before, but I did not make the connection that this was you. But I'm actually watching the video right now on your LinkedIn profile, and it's beautiful, man. Wow.
So we're actually going to have the show model for Nomad at the Glamping show this year.
Oh, good. And that's in 2 weeks for the time of this taping.
Yep. And we're actually partnered with Ruben and AGA this year. We're trying a kind of a new concept for the Glamping show, which we're calling Base Camp. It's a big kind of open plan communal area right at the center of the outdoor space for the Glamping show. We actually built a stage for the center of Base Camp. So there'll be the sessions inside you pay for the badge to be able to attend all of those sessions. And in between those sessions, we're going to have the Base Camp lecture series, which will be outside. And our stage is actually a really cool kind of half dome structure. And it's built 100% completely out of bamboo, which was also one of the factories I visited while I was in China. Was Greasy, the company that built the stage for the Glamping show for us.
And those speakers are actually the people who are just attending the expos can actually see those speakers.
Yes.
So the expo is free if you pre-register. It's $20 at the door, but you got to get online at Glamping Show USA.
And register.
It's glampingshow.us, I think it is, and then get registered. It's free. The vendors are awesome. The very first speakers.
I was blown away by how many first-time vendors are coming this year. We're really, really excited.
It's huge. It's very, very encouraging to see all those vendors there. So, man, it's gonna be quite the show.
So Nomad will be there. Our show unit. The show unit's a little bit different than the full-size unit. Full-size unit comes as a knockdown kit, so you get all the components. It ships with the deck and platform and podium, all self-contained. It's a steel structure, powder coated steel. It's a double layer canvas design. The exterior is a ripstop vinyl product, 15-year lifespan. So the show unit, because we're taking it to 5 different trade shows, it's actually a park model. So it's only 8 feet wide, 40 feet long, 42 feet long, and it's on a trailer frame with axles. And our show unit was actually built by our manufacturer in Mexico, who is phenomenal. They were the
so
first.
So that's skinnier. It's like the walls are skinnier than the real version. How wide is the real version?
The full size version for a standard unit is 14 feet wide.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
You see, 28 feet long.
Okay,
so that's the standard 2-person, and then there's a family style that will sleep up to 6, and that's 14 feet wide by 32 feet long. And then super excited about base camp. One of the things that Ruben shared with us was really a desire to want to. He said we always have more people that want to speak than we have time slots for.
Yeah.
And so we were able to basically double the speaker count for the Glamping show this year. And I will be presenting at base camp. I don't know if my time slot yet is going to be on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm supposed to be getting that scheduled sometime this week.
Yeah, I'm actually on base camp, so I'm one of the speakers. Did you notice that?
You're on the lecture series.
Yeah. I'm the first speaker on the Tuesday morning. So
on Tuesday, awesome. So you'll be on the stage that I designed.
Glamping guy is going to be there with Zach Stoltenberg and Nomad.
You'll be right next to Nomad. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then, that's awesome. Time for a glamping glamercial. Glamping is the sexiest asset class in real estate, blowing traditional real estate out of the water. If you are a landowner or a potential landowner or an investor who wants to get into the world of glamping, I invite you to my 4-video course, Easy Entry to a Glamping Business. I'm Chris Jube, the Glamping Guy. You may have seen my videos online. And I attest that while traditional real estate investing boasts maybe 10 or 20% returns, glamping typically returns 50%. In my 5 years of hosting a modest glamping operation, I have grown 100 times my first year's earnings. I will show you how you can do the same. So go to glampingguy.com/easy and get registered today to learn easy entry to a glamping business. Yeah, and I'm actually involved in a lot of groups online and Facebook and things like that, different glamping groups and stuff. And so many of them do not attend the glamping show. And there's really a lot of glamping guys out there, a lot of glamping enthusiasts who, I gotta say, and you know what? This is recorded, and the listener knows who I'm talking to. They kind of blow off this show. And I'm like, this show is like the best. There's like 2 trade shows in the whole world that's specifically for glamping, and there's one in the UK and there's one here. This is a USA show, and you got all the vendors there. You got the people who there's so much enthusiasm and excitement there. I make it my number 1 goal to get to that show, Glamping Show USA, and we're gonna Zach and I are gonna be there. So I hope that's convicting to the people who are listening.
So that's a little bit of kind of behind the scenes of some of the other stuff that I've been working on. And
okay, so let's now pivot on this one, because we know each other. We've been to each other's properties. I want to tell a little story to the listeners to just elevate your expertise, as well as maybe puff your head up a little bit, because it was so cool.
I don't need any of that.
But this was a year ago. I was having an issue with the planning department. No, it was the building department, and it had to do with the structures that I was putting on, whether my structures would elevate to commercial level, which means, sprinkler systems and tents and things like that. I didn't want to go to the commercial level. I wanted to stay residential. And we were arm wrestling that I was with the building department. You had come to the glamping show, and you have a cabin up in the mountains. So I said, hey, how about you come by and I'll put you up for the night. We'll get up in the morning. We'll go down to the building department and work this whole headache out. And we went down there, and it was you, it was me, and it was 2 of the head honchos in the building department. And I was like, you guys might have been talking Greek for all I knew. They pulled out big 3-ring binders and started flipping through international building code, this, that, and subset this. And you were reciting it by memory, and they were looking it up and validating it. And we ended up did come up with a solution to keep my property residential. I'm not going to bore the listener with maybe some other time about the details of that. I have it on my classes and things like that, but really go into detail about it. But the idea is that we were dealing with the government who was telling me no on something. You came into the room and said, well, how about this? How about that? And then they ended up saying yes in the end. That was you were Gandalf the White coming into the waving his wand, and boom,
Well,
and it just happens.
the one thing I do have to say though that I think worked in your favor was the two guys that we met with. They really wanted to say yes.
They did. They really did.
They weren't against you. They weren't against the project. It's just they read one
They actually
line.
liked what I was doing. They kind of liked it. I know
Yeah.
one of like we still talk to each other, and he's like, "You guys are doing such cool things. We want to
Yeah.
make it work. It just needs to work in the code."
And so, they had kind of looked at the book just one way, and they looked at one line in the code and been like, "Well, that's it. That's what it says." And again, I don't like taking no for an answer. And I've learned in dealing with a lot of different jurisdictions all around the country, and they're all unique. I mean,
right.
One of the things, this is always a struggle when I talk with some of my European clients or some of our suppliers in Asia, to get them to understand that the United States is just that. It's 50 different states, and they're each autonomous, and they each write their own laws. And then you have counties within each state, and then you have cities within each county. And, they're all allowed to kind of set their own planning and zoning and building code standards and all of that. And so a lot of my job and what I do is helping our clients navigate that, because it's different. Every single place you go is different.
Yep.
And they'll say, but we went to this place and they were allowed to do it. And then I met with the county and they were like, absolutely not. And why not? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but let's look at it and let's see if we can find it. And so it was really, and a lot of what I did was just asking those questions, to where when we found that resolution at the end, it was their idea. And they looked at it.
Yeah.
If we do it this way, then that doesn't apply. And if we limit this, then we're good, because that's already within the limits. That's allowed.
And then they got excited, right? They were excited. They
like, okay,
all right, this is it.
We got to figure it out.
We all wrote our emails, and you wrote something up saying, this is what I understood from the meeting. They wrote something up. I have that filed away just in case anything else that comes up in that gray area, because so much about glamping is just gray area, and we're playing in a sandbox that there's not years and decades of history to this code. So I've got my little justification sheet, and I haven't been challenged since. So it's been going great.
Well, but again, like I said, I think one of the things that worked in your favor was you really did have a lot of support from the jurisdiction. They wanted to see it happen. They said, we're struggling with this because this is what it says. We found a path, and you said, I will abide by that. I'm good with that. They said, we're good with that. So we found a way to move forward. And that's really what my job as an architect is. I would like to say I'm a designer. I do still do some design work occasionally, but really a lot of my job today is people. It's talking with people. It's asking those questions. It's finding a path forward when it's not evident that there is one. And so, we've done that. I've done that a lot over the years. And actually kind of getting to this next part of what we're going to talk about, it kind of started in that same weekend. And so I'm going to tell a story about you now.
Oh,
and that is,
you tell.
So my wife and I have been talking about trying to do a glamping resort, probably for about 2 years. And, I've had numerous clients that I've worked with that we're kind of wrapping up, or we're finishing. They're getting into construction. They're all excited. And they all ask me the same question, which is, well, when are you going to do one? Like you do this for all these other people. When are you going to do a glamping resort? And a lot of my partners have said the same thing. Some of them have even come to me and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Would you like to get in on it with us? Would you like to partner with us on it? And I've always kind of said, no, I part of it, I felt like I needed to stay sort of neutral. I wasn't going to pick a favorite or team up with somebody, because we do work with everybody in the industry. But I had this kind of nagging piece at the back of me that's like, yes, I really do want to do this. We'd love to do it. And for probably the whole first year, I thought I was making progress, but really I was making excuses, because I believed I had to find the perfect piece of property to do this on. And part of that, much to the credit of all the wonderful people that I've worked with, they've had some incredible sites.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in the last year, we've done a beautiful property in Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. We've looked at one in the Poconos outside of Philadelphia. We've looked at one in upstate New York, Massachusetts, way up in the White Mountains. God's country up there, absolutely gorgeous. We're working with a client right now that's out in Colorado, right on the Arkansas River, has almost a half a mile of frontage. These are beautiful, beautiful locations. January this year, I went to the Bahamas to look at a private island in the Bahamas that we developed an eco resort for a really outstanding client that hopefully sometime the next year we'll be able to share more details on that one. It's coming. The bureaucracy and government approval process in the Bahamas takes a very long time. And so it's in process, it's in the works. But these are incredible locations. And then I came out and I spent 2 days with you at Monument. And we're sitting on your backyard, on your deck, and I'm looking out, and you've got 6 or 7 tents on your property and the little creek down at the bottom. Yeah. And I asked you a question. And I said, Chris, what is making this thing work? Because you have a very nice property, but it's not exactly Yellowstone. It's not Zion National Park. There's neighbors on both sides. There's a subdivision on the other side of the creek. You're what, 5-6 miles off of I-25, kind of major thoroughfare.
A couple miles, actually. I could hear the highway from my house.
Yeah. And I said, what's making this work? And you said, well, Zach, I'm halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs. Those are 2 major population areas. Denver's what now, about 2.5 million, 3 million, something like that.
Yeah, it's big.
Springs is probably 250,000. You said I've got colleges and universities in both of those towns, and a lot of our customer base are students and young people that want to get out of the dormitory, away from roommates and stuff, or do a little romantic weekend with their significant other and come out and glamp for the weekend. You've got the military base nearby, the Air Base and the Air Force Academy. You said I'm, just down the road from Red Rocks, the amphitheater. And so you're talking about all these things that you have in that area that are part of your success, part of where you're drawing your customer base from, and part of what's making Monument Glamping work. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I have 5 acres of land in a rural area. I've got 3 neighbors that are within visual distance of me. I'm surrounded by woods on 2 sides. I'm on a dead-end paved road, quiet street. I am halfway between Kansas City, which is a little over 2 million people, and Lawrence, which is about 150, 160,000. There's colleges and universities in both towns. I'm 10 miles down the road.
See the similarities here, yeah.
And I've got some things that you don't have. We've got 6 different wineries that are within a 20-minute drive of my property. We have the largest, most well-known sunflower field in the entire state of Kansas that quite literally brings people from all over the world to our small town for 2 weeks out of the year. It was last week and this week that everybody comes to look at about 80 acres of just absolutely gorgeous blooming sunflowers. I have 3 wedding venues in town. Being a suburb of Kansas City, most wedding venues in the city are $50,000 to $60,000 to have it for one night for a wedding. The venues out by me are closer to 25 or 30,000. So lots of people kind of come, 20, 30 minutes outside of the city to get married at one of these wedding venues. The one just north of me, I think they do over 100 weddings a year. And all of them have the single biggest complaint, the same complaint from all their brides and grooms. And that's, I've got 150 people in my wedding. They don't have any place to stay. I live in a town of 5,000 people. How big is Monument?
10,000. but it's
10,000. Okay.
yeah, it has one hotel.
Yeah, we don't have any hotels. The
Yeah.
nearest hotels are 20 to 30 miles down the road, one way or the other. You had to go east or west. There's no hotels. There's no accommodations. There's a handful of Airbnbs that do book pretty regularly. They're all one bedroom, and they book around $200 to $250 a night.
So your crank started turning, and
I
you
started
started thinking,
turning.
okay, this Jube guy's doing it in Monument, Colorado, and I see a lot of similarities as well as some perks that
Yeah.
could go into what I got. Then I'm living on the fruit of the land, and I think I can turn it into something.
Well, and
So
I
that's
had
what got
found some
going.
properties over the years. I found a really great one that was down along the river. It was about 40 acres of land. It was treated, it was wooded. It had beautiful views out to the river, the Claw River in Kansas. And I fell in love with it. And then I looked to see what it would take to get utilities to it because there was no power, no water, no sewer service of any kind. It was a half a mile to the nearest rural water line. It was about a quarter of a mile to the nearest power lines. I made some phone calls to the utilities about what would it take just to get power and water to this site. And I was looking at about $250,000 to
Wow.
bring utilities to this property. And the property itself was almost 800,000. And so I would have been $1 million out of pocket before I built a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, my wife and I talked about it, and we just said that's not realistic. It's not possible. And so I came home from that trip and talking with you, and I sat down with my wife and I said, I got something to run past you. And she's like, what? And I said, let's do it here. She said, what do you mean here? I said, we've got 3 acres. It's an unused pasture at the bottom of my hill. It's, we're in a pretty good location. Like, I really think this could work. And she said, I don't know if we can afford to do it. And I said, I don't know if we can afford not to do it. And your wife, and trying to come up with something that you both can agree on. This might have been my biggest challenge yet.
Oh, look at that. Now, I should tell everybody I did visit your property. I'll tell the story a little bit, why I visited, but we walked the property. You actually had it mowed and set aside for, and you showed me exactly where the sites were going to be.
So I was going to give people some context first. So,
okay, good.
So this is exactly
as you're pulling this up, I want to just explain this to the listeners who are tapping in here and they just heard who you are and your experience is just rocket awesome. This series on the Glamping Guy podcast is called the Glamping Masters. And honestly, Zach, I don't know if I'd have you on if you weren't doing something yourself, because that's what this is all about. Is like people who own property and they want to do something like what we're doing. They want to just model after us, and they want to just learn, and they want to be a fly on the wall to see what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're planning, and that's what this is all about. So I'm really excited for this moment because you're going to just be presenting what you're doing on your private property. How long have you lived on your property?
Since 2012. So 12 years.
So you've been there for 14 years or 12 years. So that's wonderful. Okay. Take it away, Zach. Let's see what you got. Man, I am so sorry that I have to end it here. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, I really apologize for having to stop it here because we're rolling along, but you're driving along, and the rest of the 2.5 hours of discussion that Zach and I had involved lots of visuals. There are screenshots, and he's an architect, so he's got this big, huge program that it almost is like a picture perfect program that shows his property perfectly. He shows how people are going to get there. He even has models of his tents and his venues. He does also go into detail about his downloads that he gathered of the codes in his city or his town, and he shares a story about his neighbor who he's prepared to go up against. He even has laws in Kansas that he's going to use to justify his glamping operation in his area. So if you are if you're a glamper or an aspiring glamper, someone who wants to get land, or you have land but you don't really know all the complicated details of how to do it legally and profitably, God, you know what? This is the podcast, but I can't show it here on Spotify or iTunes. This has to be on YouTube. And so I have an extension on my YouTube channel that we continue our 2-hour conversation that shows you everything. You really have to watch it. So go to your office, go to your home, sit in your bed with your laptop, whatever, and go to my YouTube channel at YouTube at Glamping Guy. I think that's it. Then you can actually watch it and actually take notes. Dudes, this is why I'm doing the podcast, so that you can see how it's done, and you're going to be able to see how it's done by the professional, probably the most sought after professional in the glamping industry, and that's Zach Stoltenberg. But before you dive over to YouTube, take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If that's iTunes or Spotify, please do so. Helps raise the algorithm. You know the routine. It helps raise everything. It's wonderful. And hey, I'm also creating a lot of free downloads. I might create one with this one at my website at glampingguy.com. I do follow up with these episodes and create helps and downloads or guides to help you in your glamping journey to develop your glamping operation on your private property. And as I mentioned in the podcast, I will be at the Glamping Show USA here when this publishes. It'll be like next week. But I go every year, so be sure to get that onto your calendar whenever you're listening to this to attend the Glamping Show USA in October. I think it's glampingshow.us is the registration. The expo is always free, but you got to register in advance, or otherwise it's $20 at the door. Okay, so I'll see you with the YouTube extension in a little bit once you get to your computer. And if you're already on YouTube, the link is below. You can just click through and continue this conversation we have with Zach Stoltenberg. Okay, till next time, I'm Chris Chube, the Glamping Guy, helping you build your glamping operation on your private property. See you for the next Glamping Guy episode.